Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Packers Everywhere podcast. It has been quite a while, almost a month now since I've uploaded. I apologize, I've been very busy. I've recently graduated high school, and that comes with a couple final exams. I've also moved. You guys can tell there's no green screen in here. Next video, there absolutely will be a green screen. As of right now, I just haven't installed everything to hook it up right now, so that's going to be next episode. Today we are going to be doing a fun hypothetical video, and we are going to be discussing how every single NFL team can win the Super Bowl in 2027. Now, some of these are serious, some of these are not so serious, some of these are a bit of a stretch. It's meant to be a fun, positive video for like 95% of fans. There's a couple teams that are really hard to justify them winning a Super Bowl, so I made up some pretty fun imaginary scenarios for them. There's always a chance, never say never, it could be your team this year. All that being said, I'm sorry for making you guys wait so long for another episode. I'm so happy to be back doing this. Without further ado, leave a like, subscribe, let's get right into the video. Starting things off in the AFC, we got the Buffalo Bills. Now, Josh Allen has given Bills fans heartbreak year after year trying to win them a Super Bowl. Some of it being his fault, some of it being not so much his fault. However, I could see the Bills winning the Super Bowl if Josh Allen and the addition of DJ Moore turns into the next dynamic duo in the NFL. The addition of DJ Moore is definitely going to boost the Bills' chances of getting it done, especially when you need to pass the ball for a first down on 3rd and 15 in the playoffs. And most importantly, the defense absolutely needs to live up to the hype. Not a lot has changed for Buffalo this offseason, but at the end of the day, Buffalo's playoff hopes and Super Bowl hopes ride or die with Josh Allen. Next up, we've got the Miami Dolphins. Jeff Hafley discovers how to make NFL super players or super soldiers, like in Captain America, and successfully turns every single member of his team into super players that are even more jacked, even more ripped NFL players that simply outmuscle and outpower everybody else. Yeah, the Dolphins. Yeah, no, you're not winning the Super Bowl this year. Sorry, Miami. Moving on to the New England Patriots. Now, if New England can somehow prove that their extremely fluky and paper soft schedule last year wasn't just a fluke, I could see them running it back and getting close there. However, a lot of people, including myself, have them as a wild card team or just outside the playoffs this year once they have to face good teams all year round and don't have the easiest road in the playoffs to the Super Bowl of all time. However, Drake May, with some of his new receivers like Romeo Doubs, could absolutely take over the league. Drake May should definitely be an MVP candidate yet again, and that could bode really well, especially if Travion Henderson is properly utilized this year. The Patriots offense could be one of the best in the entire league, and that defense is still going to be top 10 or top 5. I don't see them taking a regression there. However, the roster as a whole may not be Super Bowl caliber. However, they are still Super Bowl contenders and shouldn't be discounted as many people are because of their soft schedule last year. Now, we've got the New York Jets. 1-0. If you know, you know. Just kidding. Geno Smith magically turns back the clock to his Seattle days, I suppose. Garrett Wilson overnight turns into Justin Jefferson, and miracles do happen in New York, similar to the New York Knicks, I guess. Some of their voodoo magic rubs off on the Jets, and New York is literally burned to the ground after watching both the Jets and the New York Knicks win a championship in their respective leagues in the same year. Next, we've got the Baltimore Ravens. This is similar to the Buffalo Bills. Lamar Jackson needs to vindicate some of his playoff demons to finally get over the hump and get them to a Super Bowl, never mind win one. However, I think if he finally got out of the AFC, Lamar would definitely win a Super Bowl. Derrick Henry is also a man that needs to kind of be questioned here, because I feel like whenever the Ravens need that big run, Henry rips it off, but then he kind of has that Aaron Jones syndrome in Green Bay, where he kind of fumbles in really shitty moments where he really can't afford to, especially a guy like Derrick Henry. I remember a couple games last year, Henry had some unfortunate fumbles, tackles. So if he can hold on to the ball in crucial moments this year, I feel like the Ravens absolutely have a big chance of winning the Super Bowl. Anytime you've got those two in the backfield, they do. And again, that defense needs to live up to the potential again. I guess we'll see if John Harbaugh was the problem in Baltimore. And we'll see if Jesse Minter can fix this Ravens defense and finally maximize the potential of both the Ravens defense and the Ravens team as a whole. The Cincinnati Bengals. Well, the Bengals revamped their entire defensive front this offseason, which I kind of like because they now have two elite defensive tackles in Jonathan Allen and most importantly Sexy Dexy, who they traded their 10th overall selection for. They also acquired Boye Mafe to fix their edge problems with the departure of Trey Hendrickson. And I personally am a big fan of Boye Mafe. He's great against the run. And Trey Hendrickson was never a guy that was very good against the run. I think that Boye Mafe could really help them in more ways than Trey Hendrickson was able to. Not that Hendrickson was a bad player whatsoever, but he's more of a purebred pass rusher rather than Boye Mafe being a more complete edge rusher in general. And I think that offensive unit is actually going to be pretty good as a whole, especially if they can get some production out of Shamar Stewart or Shamar Turner. And as long as Joe Burrow doesn't have to put up 50 points per game like they did last year to even win a game, the Bengals will be Super Bowl contenders with even a top 15 defense this year. If that O-line looks anything resembling a competent unit, I believe that Joe Burrow might be the favorite for MVP this year because he's still got his three top receivers in Yosivas and most importantly T. Higgins and Jamar Chase still in Cincinnati. And now we got the Pittsburgh Steelers. This one's a little bit of a stretch, but if Aaron Rodgers takes some magic inhaling substances this summer, who knows what he could chop up with his head coach, old friend Mike McCarthy, ex-Cowboys coach Mike McCarthy, ex-Super Bowl champion Mike McCarthy with your Green Bay Packers. Maybe they can cook up like it's 2015 again. And Rico Dowdle showed some amazing flashes, having multiple 200-yard games last year in Carolina. If he can do anything like that in Pittsburgh, watch out for the Steelers in the AFC North. It's going to be a competitive AFC North this year, but don't count the Steelers out even if they squeak into a wild card game this year. I know Aaron Rodgers is getting up there in his years. However, reuniting with Mike McCarthy just might be the best thing for Aaron Rodgers in his last season in Pittsburgh. And that Steelers defense is always good. If TJ Watt and that defense can stay healthy, watch out for Pittsburgh this year. The Cleveland Browns. Woof. Well, if the NFL changes their rules to win a game to whoever has the most aura, and Shedeur Sanders starts every game, then he could win every single game by most aura points and social media followers. Yeah, the Browns are in piss. They're not winning the Super Bowl this year, guys. Sorry, Browns fans. Moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. If Trevor Lawrence finally lives up to that first overall prodigy quarterback that he's been since high school and finally achieves MVP level play in Jacksonville, then I could see them easily winning their division and being strong Super Bowl contenders this year. The Jacksonville defense has also, over the last couple of years, had linear progress and gotten slightly better, in my opinion. Their secondary can be questionable at times. However, that defensive front is very strong, especially with a guy like Josh Allen. No, not that Josh Allen, this Josh Allen. If they can turn back the clock and look like that 2017 Saxonville defense all over again, watch out for Jacksonville this year. The Tennessee Titans. If Cam Ward has the greatest, most incredible sophomore jump, not slump, jump of all time this year, and develops his connection with Carnell Tate to literally a world-class level of football, then I could see the offense being somewhat relevant this year. And if Robert Saleh makes that defense look anything but an incompetent poverty unit, the Jets organization is going to be in piss if Robert Saleh can somehow turn that Titans team into a Super Bowl champion in year one in his tenure in Tennessee. Moving on to the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud finally doesn't choke and throws less than 4 interceptions in a playoff game this year, and finally gives his defense a chance to win them a Super Bowl because that defense is scary good, and I don't see them taking a step back this year. But seriously, CJ Stroud needs to lock in because he hasn't been the same since he was a rookie and got injured. If he resembles anything like that rookie year version of himself, watch out for Houston because I honestly thought last year they could win the Super Bowl because of that defense. and CJ Stroud literally threw that out the window, no pun intended. But I really don't think that this is anywhere near the best version of CJ Stroud. We've seen it firsthand. He's capable of being a very good quarterback, and we'll see if that translates on the field this year. Indianapolis Colts. Daniel Jones returns from his ACL surgery even better than he was last year and leads the Colts undefeated all year with a strong defense, strong run game from Jonathan Taylor, strong offensive line, a little bit of a different receiving group this year. However, that shouldn't affect Daniel Jones. And a small retooling of their defense with departures of Zaire Franklin and additions of, I think it was Kobe Wooden from the Packers, and they made a couple small moves like that. That could pay dividends this year. If their defense can also elevate Daniel Jones and surpass his limitations physically, then watch out for Indianapolis again in the AFC South this year. Now for the last division in the AFC, the AFC West. The LA Chargers finally find a magic serum that helps them both stay healthy and not choke, and Justin Herbert finally vindicates those social media quarterback allegations he's had his entire career and finally becomes that true MVP caliber quarterback. I think the Chargers could actually be scary again this year if their O-line is not completely battered and bruised like it was last year. I remember they were starting like third stringers at literally every position at one point last year. That was pretty sad to see. They do, however, have a good O-line with Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, and they got a couple decent guards. I think Vera Tucker might be there even. And that Chargers defense with a second year now Jim Harbaugh, could actually be pretty good yet again. Still got good pieces like Khalil Mack, and you got Derwin James still there. However, I think it would take an absolute miracle for the Chargers not to choke and not to get injured again this year. So don't count on it, Chargers fans, but stay optimistic and know that you do have a good team on paper. Not much needs to be said for the Denver Broncos. I think they were right there, and I think they were the rightful AFC champions last year, other than Bo Nix getting hurt, and their backup QB just didn't play well. I think it was Jarrett Stidham. I thought he was going to play better than that in Sean Payton's system. Didn't go that way for them, and the Patriots beat them. However, with a healthy Bo Nix this year and more development from some of these other guys, I mean, this was the quickest rebuild I've literally ever seen in the NFL. So props to Denver for doing that. And as soon as they got rid of Russell Wilson, things seem to have gotten better for the Broncos. I think they're already one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl, if not the favorite. The Kansas City Chiefs, well, they've got devil magic on their side. We already know that. And if Patrick Mahomes can prove last year was just a fluke, and he's still that MVP caliber quarterback capable of throwing 50 touchdowns any given year, watch out for Kansas City as usual. Steve Spagnuolo's defense is going to be problematic for a lot of teams as usual. And if he can make that deal with the devil to make all of his competition collapse like he has done for the past 5 years, terrorizing the entire AFC, the Chiefs could be a problem again, and they always could. They're always a shoo-in. As long as they have Patrick Mahomes, they will be Super Bowl contenders from day one until they literally lose enough games to be bounced from the playoffs. The Las Vegas Raiders. This one is a little tough. However, if Mendoza and Cousins take turns at QB every drive with a new innovative system powered by friendship and love, they turn the city of Las Vegas around into a city of love instead of a city of partying and all that other stuff that goes on there. And the Raiders, not only that, will have no arrests this year because of this new love and compassion for each other with Kirk Cousins and Fernando Mendoza leading the way there. Not only that, but no one's out partying and everybody gets along in that Vegas locker room this year. Now to the NFC side of things. In the NFC East, the Washington Commanders. If by work of divine intervention, Jaden Daniels can break the curse of Washington QBs getting hurt and play like he did as a rookie without a CJ Stroud kind of collapse, the Washington Commanders are very much a contender to win the Super Bowl as long as they have Jaden Daniels as their quarterback. They also brought in a couple guys, namely Odafe Owe on the defense to bolster that. They also drafted Sonny Styles, I believe, so they got some edge and linebacker help. That defense could be looking better now. They also signed Laramie Tunsil, hopefully so Jaden Daniels isn't running for his life because he is a quite good thrower of the football. And if he is actually almost better when he's passing than when he is running. However, he very much can still beat you with his legs, but he may take less hits and have a better chance of staying healthy with a guy like Laramie Tunsil blocking for him. The Commanders may be a little bit of a dark horse. However, they are definitely in the running to win the East and potentially even make a playoff push, and who knows what happens. And once you get in, anybody can win. We saw that rookie year with Jaden Daniels. I mean, he torched the Lions and he almost beat that Super Bowl champion Eagles team as a rookie with that terrible, terrible Washington Commanders defense and team as a whole. Without the cancers of A.J. Brown crashing out every time he doesn't get the ball, and the addition of Malachi Lemon, the Eagles' offense could potentially be better, especially now that they've gotten rid of Nick Sirianni and Kevin Patullo and brought in anybody else. Literally, I would be better than both of those guys calling their plays for them. The Eagles' offense and Jalen Hurts could return to that MVP caliber level that they were at 2 years ago when they did win the Super Bowl in 2025. And the defense should be as good as usual. I don't see why not. They've got so much talent on that side of the ball. The Eagles are always a contender to win the Super Bowl, and I really think that the problems resided with the offensive side of the ball last year. If they fix those problems, the Eagles could very easily win the Super Bowl this year. Next, we've got the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones actually had a quietly good offseason, or not so quiet because it is Jerry Jones. And Rashawn Gary, if he can become that premier edge rusher that Green Bay envisioned him being when they drafted him in the first round many years ago, I believe it was 6 by now, maybe 7. Dak Prescott is always an MVP caliber quarterback, and with the addition now of George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, that dynamic duo is so good. Can take over any game at any time and beat almost any secondary in the league. I believe that Caleb Downs is going to be a home run for them at number 10. And they've got 2 good defensive tackles now, and in Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark. If that defense can finally be good, I don't know who's going to be in the secondary, but I guess Caleb Downs is going to have to cover literally everybody in the secondary because he's about the only good player that the Cowboys have there, and they've been historically bad over the last couple of years in the secondary. But that offense could very easily carry them to a Super Bowl, kind of like the Bengals did in 2020 with Joe Burrow. If they have that kind of a season on offense, then absolutely the Dallas Cowboys could be a Super Bowl contender this year. The rest of their division would have to kind of suck just for them to make the playoffs, I think, but there is definitely hope in Dallas this year. Next, you got the New York Giants. Jackson Dart's political ties leave the rest of the league absolutely terrified to beat them. To avoid either being bombed or deported, every NFL team forfeits their games against the Giants this year, and the Giants are crowned Super Bowl champions by default. Now we've got the NFC North. You got the Green Bay Packers. The easiest one, they're obviously going to win the Super Bowl, so there's no point in even me talking about them. I'm kidding, but in all seriousness, Micah Parsons and the Green Bay Packers as a whole have to stay healthy this year, last year. And no matter what you want to chop them not being healthy up to, whether it's the medical staff, just sheer bad luck, they have to stay healthy. There's no excuses this year. And Jonathan Gannon needs to fit like a glove as the defensive coordinator and manage this talented Green Bay defense well and scheme up for a lot of good opponents because the Packers don't have an easy schedule this year. They're really going to need to play up to their potential and not just what they were at last year or down. Another 9-8 wildcard berth is not going to cut it for Green Bay this year. They're going to have a tough time to win the Super Bowl if they do that. Jordan Love also needs to take another step with his receivers. Namely, Matthew Golden and Jaden Reed, I believe, need to take the biggest leaps forward. Christian Watson appeared to take a decent step forward last year already. I think he racked up 700 yards in half a season, so that was really awesome. That's 1,400 yards in full season. There's a lot of hope and optimism for Green Bay. If Josh Jacobs can also stay out of jail, I believe, that is another factor to consider in Green Bay. There's a lot of things that could go wrong in Green Bay, but if every single thing goes right, I believe they could very well win the Super Bowl this year. The Chicago Bears. Ben Johnson successfully turns Caleb Williams into an elite MVP caliber quarterback, which Bears fans, he is not quite yet. He hasn't completed 60% of his passes in a year. Sorry, Chicago, but I believe he absolutely will next year, which is kind of scary as a Packers fan. I think it comes down to whether he can beat the cover curse next year and actually have a successful season after being given the cover athlete on Madden 27. And the defense needs to take a couple more steps in the right direction, but Ben Johnson is one of the best coaches in the NFL already. And the Bears should be considered a Super Bowl contender right now, which is really weird to be saying as a Packers fan. The Detroit Lions. Now, last season, they kind of had a bit of regression, and to avoid regression more, I think they need to make a big trade and acquire somebody, but they are going to get healthier this year, and they could prove that the last season's regression was just a fluke. Jared Goff could return to 2024 form or 2025 form when they went 15-1. Finally, if he could vindicate his playoff demons, Jared Goff that is, and I think Jahmyr Gibbs being the featured back now in Detroit is absolutely going to be the best thing for that offense, because he could probably go for 2,000 yards this year, and you know what, hot take, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to go for 2,000 yards this year, barring injury or anything other any other hypotheticals that could happen. And that is one of the ways Detroit is going to have a chance to win a lot of games this year. But pretty much Dan Campbell needs to tell his team he's going to bite every single one of their kneecaps off if they don't win the Super Bowl this year. And yeah, he's going to do that. The Minnesota Vikings. Now, Kevin O'Connell finally gets the best version out of Kyler Murray. We're not even going to talk about the other guy that they have at quarterback there. I think Kyler Murray has to be the guy right now in Minnesota, and has kind of like a Russell Wilson, like elite Russell Wilson kind of a season. Maybe even a little better as a passer than Russell Wilson ever was. And Brian Flores needs to somehow make this ancient defense look like they were 3 or 4 years ago, because they were scary good a couple years ago. However, they are pretty old now, but if they turn back the clock and have just one more good year, the Vikings could make some noise in the North and even in the entire NFC conference this year. Don't count out the Vikings this year, because Kyler Murray is definitely still a good quarterback. He helped the Cardinals go 13-4 one year. And Kevin O'Connell is a quarterback whisperer. He made many quarterbacks, namely Sam Darnold, look very good. And I think the connection with Justin Jefferson is going to help Kyler Murray in ways we can't even imagine right now. Watch out for the Vikings next year. Now for the NFC South. First off, we got the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young finally booms, and his potential is finally realized in Carolina, and not only just being an above average quarterback, but actually being an MVP caliber quarterback, which is what you're supposed to be when you're drafted first overall as a quarterback. And I feel like they could have a potentially lucky playoff run, kind of like New England's last year, given the fact that they're in a weak-ish division, and I think their schedule is a little bit easy this year, if I'm not mistaken. And once you get into the playoffs, who knows what happens. I don't think they've made any major changes to the team this year, but they haven't given up on Bryce Young, and he's only gotten better every single year. But Bryce Young really needs to achieve that MVP caliber play, and they need to hope that Rico Dowdle wasn't a top 10 running back that they just gave up on last year, because he looked scary good for them, and hopefully he's replaceable, and that their O-line is really that good, and they'll have a run game that can go for 200 yards any given Sunday, because that is really important in the NFL these days. I think there's definitely a lot of room to be optimistic as a Panthers fan this year. Now we've got the Atlanta Falcons. Now, despite the Falcons not being hot dog water, I'm really struggling to come up with a vision, like a practical scenario where the Falcons actually win the Super Bowl with their current roster. That's not a joke, but I don't think they're bad enough where they should be made into a joke like I've done for a couple of these teams, because they're not quite that bad. It's not that much of a stretch as it is some of these teams to win the Super Bowl this year. So Bijan would basically have to be the best running back in the league. Drake London would have to cement himself as a top 5 receiver, and Penix would also have to take leaps and bounds. I think the offense has to exceed expectations beyond what we could expect them to. Obviously, Kyle Pitts has to be a Travis Kelce or George Kittle caliber tight end this year for sure, if they want to have any chances of winning the Super Bowl. Because I don't think their defense is bad, but I don't think they're anywhere near where a Super Bowl caliber defense should be come next February. And it's really hard, I think, the Falcons are one of those teams that it's hard to be optimistic for this year, because they're kind of the epitome of mid in the NFL. Next up, we got the New Orleans Saints. Out of nowhere, Drew Brees signs with the Saints as their new offensive coordinator, calling the plays and mentoring Tyler Shough personally, and that makes him a top 5 quarterback in the league, and Tyler Shough starts playing like prime Drew Brees. The addition of Travis Etienne also plays like prime Alvin Kamara. because this defense just does not have enough juice to get it done. So Tyler Shuck in this offense, and Jordan Tyson, I believe, is the guy they drafted, are going to have to be on another level this year to have them anywhere near a playoff spot, never mind the Super Bowl. However, there's a lot of hope for the future in New Orleans. Now, Tampa Bay is a team I'm absolutely looking forward to watch next year because Baker Mayfield, one, is a lot of fun. Emeka Egbuka looked amazing last year, and I believe he could be the next Mike Evans with now Mike Evans gone. I think he signed in San Francisco. They still have Chris Godwin, so it's Chris Godwin and Emeka Egbuka now. If that O-line can stay healthy and Tristan Wirfs can stay healthy, Bucky Irvin should have a better season. The offense as a whole should have a better season. They've got a pretty good defense, and I think as long as they stay healthy, the Buccaneers could easily be a Super Bowl contender and definitely should be the favorites to win their division and a powerhouse in the NFC this year. Although there's a lot of other powerhouses in the NFC, but the Buccaneers are a well-constructed team. I love Baker Mayfield. Definitely hoping for the best for the Buccaneers this year. And Baker Mayfield, he can get it done, and I think he's proven that because he's gotten it done with Cleveland in the playoffs before. And the only other guy that's had any playoff success with Cleveland in the playoffs before is LeBron James. I'm not saying Baker Mayfield is LeBron James, but I'm also not saying he's not. Now for the NFC West, starting off with the Arizona Cardinals, 1-0 if you know, you know. Moving on to the San Francisco 49ers, divine protection blesses the 49ers team's health to finally stay healthy. CMC stays healthy, Nick Bosa stays healthy, Brock Purdy stays healthy, the whole squad stays healthy, and because of that, they have a Super Bowl caliber team on paper. If they do all stay healthy and have 0 injuries this year, they could finally win a real Super Bowl instead of a hypothetical Super Bowl like they've won for the past 5 years. Myles Garrett is the truth and comes as advertised to the LA Rams and is just as good, if not better, than Aaron Donald, who very well still could unretire and play one more year for the Rams, or at least come coach them in some way. And if Matthew Stafford can stay as an elite quarterback, he doesn't even need to be an MVP with that team around him. I think that team is going to be a problem for everybody next year. With Myles Garrett on that team, like, there's no telling what they'll do. In my books, they are the Super Bowl favorite as of right now. Yes, higher than the Seahawks in their own division. The Rams are just that good right now on paper. I think that they are the current preseason Super Bowl champs, kind of like the Packers were last year, and we'll see how that holds up in a couple of months. On a side note, if Matthew Stafford can win his second Super Bowl ring and potentially MVP, what does that do for his Hall of Fame case? And or his legacy in general? Let me know down in the comments below what you guys think that will do for him. I think that would put him in one of like a top 10 conversation quarterback of all time. If not at least top 20, I think that another ring for Matthew Stafford could really, really cement his legacy, considering he played in Detroit for so long and played well. And now last but not least, we've got the Seattle Seahawks. Now, I don't see why they shouldn't be a Super Bowl contender this year. Sam Darnold will need to play even better than he did last year, but he will need to play like he did in the playoffs, which he played extremely well all year. If he can play like an MVP caliber quarterback and that defense proves that those losses that they took, paying that Super Bowl tax this offseason, weren't the difference between winning the Super Bowl and maybe not this year. If they cannot regress this year defensively, I think that they should be as scary as usual. Jonathan Smith-Njigba is going to be a problem again for the entire league and any team playing the Seattle Seahawks. Now, Kenneth Walker is gone. However, they do have Zach Charbonnet. If he can excel and fit like a glove and prove the Seahawks O-line is the reason that their run game is so good, and not that it was Kenneth Walker, who did sign with the Chiefs this year, by the way, so that should be another reason why these Chiefs could win a Super Bowl. However, I don't think it's that hard to imagine why the Seahawks should be a favorite to repeat as champions. They're a very good team and have all the pieces that they need to win a Super Bowl. Let me know in the comments down below who your Super Bowl champion next year is going to be. If you guys enjoy this kind of content, this is all I do. I talk about football, I open cards, and I really enjoy this kind of stuff. I hope you guys enjoy watching these videos as much as I enjoy making them. If you do, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. Those all tell YouTube you enjoyed the video. I love to answer your comments if you have something to say. Go talk to me. I'll always answer your comments. With all that being said, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I won't take any more of your time. I will see you guys in the next video. See ya.